truth of the matter is that when you are dealing with understanding how things work when it comes to marketing, comes to building a brand, it's not your job to lead them to water. It's not your job to try to make the horse drink. Your job is to run them so hard that they're thirsty that when they get to water, they're going to drink. And that's a very different understanding or very different concept and construct for us to understand as business owners, as people who are doing any level of marketing. We have to learn how to build a brand with results. In other words, when people see your name, what do they associate with that? When they see your business, what do they associate with that? What comes along with it? And how do you stand out from the crowd? When all of the minutiae and all the things that are going on, what do they see when they see you? And are they paying attention to the bear, or are they paying attention to all the noise that's going on around you? And we're not talking about brand awareness. We're talking about a brand response, if you will. Sometimes marketing or advertising is just brand awareness. It's letting people know who you are. Well, I don't need people to know who I am. I need people to engage me. I need people to buy. I need people to hire. I need people to get involved with my organizations. I don't want them just to know that that's one of those cool businesses around the corner. I need them to engage, because engage is what causes us to grow. It causes us to build a reputation. And so we have to understand there are keys, or there are tools that are necessary, or ideas necessary to build the brand. Because when you build a brand, brands last, businesses don't. And now when you have a brand, or you have an understanding of branding, you now can do just about anything. So now you have one business and you want to start another business, and you start another business, you start another one. Your brand becomes you. And now anything you are associated with, people will have a certain expectation, because they have learned who you are and they understand who your brand is. So then now when your name comes up, or a business name comes up, or the icon or your logo or whatever the case is, when people see it, they think certain things. You're not going to walk into a Louis Vuitton store and think you're going to get it cheap. You just already know when you walk through the door that this is going to be pricey, or you don't walk through the door in the first place. These are the constructs of brand. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to understand how to find your niche or your product and market. Again, you can't be all things to everybody. You have to learn that it's not about being broad. It's about being very, very specific. What are you good at? What is your product? What is the niche area that you desire to serve? Or more importantly, what are you best equipped to serve? Because not everybody is equipped to handle everything. Not everybody can speak to everything. So laser focus means I go from trying to be everything to I begin to realize there's a specific market that I can go after. There's a specific type of product that I'm going to sell. There's a specific service that I represent, and this is just who I am. Now, remember, we talked about this, understanding your USP, or your unique selling proposition. Your unique selling proposition is based on why do you matter, to whom do you matter to, and not what you sell. It's really not based on what you sell. It is truly based on the nature of what does it do for your client. So Dan Norman, the VP of Advanced Technology of Apple in 1993, he said there were 3 evaluations required at the inception of any product or idea. Now, some entrepreneurs, what makes you an entrepreneur, what makes you a leader, is you have tons of ideas. Otherwise, you really wouldn't be endeavoring down this road. The problem is that your ideas always have to go through a certain gauntlet of testing to make sure that you're not just trying to do anything. In other words, if you're trying, I'll give you a very, very good example. Krispy Kreme sold as a franchise and began to put up franchises everywhere. There was a season of time, if you remember years ago, there was a season of time where there was a Krispy Kreme everywhere. And then all of a sudden, they shut down, you stopped seeing them anywhere, and then they went to a different distribution model, and eventually Krispy Kreme has now started to come back with local stores. Now, let me tell you the backstory of what happened. The original owners of Krispy Kreme sold it to a company who tried to franchise and take it nationwide. When you started seeing them all pop up, that's when they had sold it to another company. That company, it was costing $1 million to open a Krispy Kreme. Now, listen to me. You're giving them away, right? Hot and fresh sign comes on. Everybody's trying to run folks off the road to get in there and get a free Krispy Kreme donut. The bigger problem is, do you know how many donuts you got to sell to cover $1 million of your initial investment? So now they sold it back to the original owners, and now they are going back to the basics of this is how we did it and this is how we made it work. See, what I'm trying to tell you is just because it's a good idea don't mean it's the right idea. And so what they did in Apple is they had 3 requirements that were necessary in order for every product to make it past the idea stage. The first one was a marketing requirement. Marketing is very simple. What do people want? Not what can you do, but what do they want? What is the real thing that the person you are dealing with, your client, your customer, your patron, your donor, what do they really, really want? The second requirement, there was an engineering requirement. And the engineering requirement was very simple. It is, what can we do? What are we actually physically capable of doing? And then the third one was the user experience. And this was, how do people like to do things? If you have paid very close attention to the market today, you will find that Apple's driving the market. In other words, if you remember, there used to be a earphone jack, a 1/8 jack on the bottom of every iPhone. It went away. When it went away, everybody got frustrated. Why are you messing with how I do things? Because Apple knew that they were going to the AirPods. And they needed the space in the phone to get that jack out of the phone so that they could use that space to increase memory, to increase CPU power. So they're driving the market. They're not responding to what everybody wants. They're literally saying, how are we going to be doing things in 5 years? How are we going to be doing things in 10 years? And they're getting out in front. Yes, people kick and scream. The latest thing is now that the newer iPhones are going to come out with no charger cables in it. Why? Because everybody has charger cables. You got them coming out the wazoo. And they know that. So they're driving the market by staying out in front of watching how do people like to do things and how will they start doing them in the future. Because you could have a great product. It's exactly what people want. But the way that they're going to have to do it is so counterintuitive that they're not going to want to deal with you. So, for example, OxyClean. When OxyClean first came out, it was an infomercial. Why was it an infomercial? Because it had to change the way people did things. You couldn't just put this product on the shelf and say, here, buy it. Nobody would have bought it. So now I got to train you. So I got to do an infomercial and train you what this stuff does. Now you have, when's the last time you really seen an infomercial for it? It's on the shelf. See, what you have to think about is some of your products and things that you do. I'll give you a great example, the Electrostatic disinfection company that we have. People don't even understand what that is. So you can't really just put it out there and say, if you want to deal with this, come see me. Because they don't even know. And those that think they know still really don't know. So there's now an educational process that's involved to bring people up to speed to understand it. So depending on your product or what you do, you've got to think through these 3 things. What is it that people really want? What is it that you can do? And then more importantly, how will people use it in relation to how they like to do things? If you're going to make it real counterintuitive for people, it's going to be very hard to sell it because they're not going to go with the program because they're going to say, well, I don't really like to do it that way. I want to do it a different way. So how people do things. Ready? Look at that. You'll read this first, then you'll read this, then this one, and you'll read this last. How many of you read it in that order? Raise your hand. Raise them up high, real quick. Look at most of you. That's how people do things. So I want you to understand, when you get how people do things, then if you're going to build an ad that you're going to put on Facebook, that all you have is 3 seconds, right? Because here's what people are doing. They're scrolling, right? And if you are one of the people who are unanointed and using an Android, you're swiping. My platform, I can say what I want. So you need to get saved and get an iPhone. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. Well, here's what I'm trying to get you to see. When people see your ad, where do you put the most important information? Because if you're putting it in the wrong spot and you've only got seconds, it makes the difference of response, of knowing what to put where. It's not just enough to have a great ad. It's not just enough to say all the wonderful things. You have to understand, where do certain things belong. So if you're trying to get the greatest result, you put the best information or the most necessary information in the right spots, because you understand how people